Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. Morning Shot.
Welcome to Morning Shot. I'm Audrey Seek. Now let's start with a quick question. If you were in school today, would you use AI to help with your homework? Or maybe the better question is, how much would you use AI? Because for many students now, generative AI tools like ChatGPT are becoming part of everyday academic life, drafting essays, summarizing lecture notes, even debugging code. Some educators say, hey, this is the future. Let's teach students how to use it well. But others are sounding the alarm. Is critical thinking taking a back seat? Are we raising a generation of copy-paste learners? Just yesterday, the Straits Times reported that 3 NTU students were given 0 for an assignment after being found to have used Gen AI tools that included fake references and broken links. So where do we draw the line, and how do we teach students to use these tools responsibly? Joining us today are two people who've spent a lot of time thinking about this. First up, we've got Professor Venky Shankararaman, Vice Provost for Education at SMU, joining us this morning. Good morning, Professor. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning. Nice to be here.
Thanks for joining us. And we also have in the mix Danish Lukawski, founder of DANAMIC and a generative AI lecturer. Danish, welcome to the show as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you both here. So let's start with a broad look at the classroom today. It's been a long time since I've been in one, I have to say. So how have you both seen Gen AI tools changing the way students tackle assignments or learning tasks? What kind of shifts, good or worrying, are starting to show up? We'll start with you, Professor.
Okay. I think this is like most students and people in general, naturally strive to be efficient and productive.
Yeah.
Right? So often opting for the optimal way to solve a problem. So it's therefore no surprise that students are increasingly turning to AI tools to support their assignments. So this is something that, as you just mentioned, they use it for various, and they find very much more innovative ways of using these tools, and they're very quick at identifying what are the latest tools as well. So this is going to be, and I fully agree that on one side, it helps with efficiency, and the other side, I think we will discuss in terms of what it has impact on the independent thinking ability.
Danish, over to you.
So I think it's because it's the same way as when we first used Google to kind of search for information on the internet. And then slowly as we go from millennials to Gen Z and even Gen Alpha that are now in the classroom, they've kind of used other platforms. Like TikTok became their new search engine. And then now ChatGPT or any of the AI tools have become their tools of trade.
Yeah.
So how we used to optimize and how we would Google search, they're learning how to optimize and how to use like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and any other AI tools that they have as well. But the problem here is how they use it and whether they actually do any sort of critical thinking, or if they understand that not everything that they're seeing or getting is also true.
Accurate, yeah.
Yeah. Because like how on Google we would have to search for links that were true, they were not false. They don't have the same kind of pathway to kind of understand whether the information they're getting from ChatGPT is correct. And sometimes they don't even think about asking ChatGPT, are you sure this is fully correct?
Yeah.
Can you give me your sources? Can you validate it?
Okay, so you talked about critical thinking there, Danish, and there's been a lot of concern about how AI might weaken independent thinking in students or originality maybe. Are you seeing this play out in practice? And on the flip side, can AI actually help deepen engagement or understanding if used in the right way?
So there is definitely a trend where students are getting their assignments, their work done faster, because I think obviously they would like to have a lot more of their social life back if possible. I mean, being a student before, that was one of the goals I had. But what I'm also starting to see is that a lot of the ideas are becoming standard or even substandard. It's a lot of regurgitation.
Yeah.
It's a lot of groupthink. And the problem is groupthink is okay on its own in certain places, but when you ask them why do they think this way and they can't answer you, that's where the big question comes. So is this really your idea or is it not your idea? Or even if it is a borrowed idea, do you at least know why this idea stands, right? If you don't understand what you're standing for, then you don't stand for anything at all. That's basically what happens.
Okay. So Professor Venky, over to you. Do you think critical thinking has been taking a hit lately?
Okay, so this is still early days, but there's been a recent MIT study titled Your Brain on ChatGPT, Accumulation of Cognitive Debt when Using an AI Assistant for Essay Writing. I'm not going to go through the full details of this research, but what they did is they put students into 3 groups. One group will use only their brain. The second group will use Google search, and the third will use ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Okay. And using EEG to monitor the brain activity, they study what's the pattern of brain activity. And they identified a clear pattern. Brain connectivity decreased as reliance on external tools increased. So the brain connectivity was very good for those who just use their brain. The second one was less effective. That's the search engine. And the worst was ChatGPT.
Okay, well, that's not all that surprising, is it? But let's talk about this NTU case that's been in the news. Students got 0 marks because their work contained some made-up sources and dodgy stats, all AI generated, of course. So what does that tell us about the challenges universities face now in policing AI use? And how do you decide when it crosses into academic misconduct, Professor?
Okay, so I think this presents a dual challenge for us at institutes of higher education, right? On one hand, our core mission is to cultivate independent, critical thinking in students, skills that are essential for solving complex problems across all aspects of life. On the other hand, we must also ensure that our graduates are ready for the workplace, because they got to be equipped with the ability to use the latest tools that drive efficiency and productivity.
Okay.
So how do we get this right balance? And I believe it is crucial to rethink how university programs are structured so that students can continue developing strong critical thinking skills while also learning to use AI effectively as they prepare for the workforce. So to achieve this balance will require significant reimagination of our curriculum, the pedagogy, the assessment methods, and other broader student experiences.
Yeah. So you talked about these methods. Let's flip to the educator side of the table. What are some practical ways teachers and lecturers can guide AI use without kind of discouraging using it? Because now it's kind of a thing of the future, or actually it's a thing that's happening right now. So how do you leverage that and actually use that tool to your advantage? Danish.
So for me, I don't shy away from using it in class, because I think the best way to kind of teach students is also to demonstrate how it is. Because sometimes some students would be like, are you sure this is how to use ChatGPT? Some of them would even go out to saying that you can't be a hypocrite if you can't show us how you're using it and tell us not to use it, or tell us not to use it in this manner, right? So then I would actually demonstrate that, look, if I'm trying to find information for an assignment, here's how I could do it. I would demonstrate things like frameworks that they could use. And the frameworks are not just things you just copy-paste as well. The frameworks also require some degree of thinking, because the best output you get is based on what input you give in, right? So if you give in trash, ChatGPT is going to give you trash right back, right? If you give in a lot of input, you give in a lot of thought, ChatGPT can do its best to also kind of summarize and align that. And I think that's very important for students to see. But I do share the same sentiments whereby for assignments, continuous assessment, the current methods now are easy to be gamed, right? ChatGPT or any AI can kind of just make them breeze through. But then the real result comes when it comes to like a common test or an exam, and then you suddenly see a very, very wide strata.
Oh, no.
You will have students who do extremely well, so they've been studying, or at least they've been internalizing the content, and you have students who they could have had 90% on their continuous assessment.
And it's like a steep drop,
yeah,
right?
and then just close to 0, and you'll be like, what happened, right?
Wow.
And that kind of shows how much they relied on ChatGPT or AI throughout their course of education, which kind of mirrors that MIT research paper as well.
So you talked about the frameworks, and you've been teaching structured prompting frameworks. Could you break this down a little bit for us? What is it, and how does it help students understand and use Gen AI more effectively and more meaningfully?
So a framework is just basically a way to structure your thoughts and your input so that ChatGPT does its best to kind of figure out what you want. Because just like when we talk to each other, if I tell you can you get me like a glass of water? There's a lot of steps that I'm not actually telling you that you've already sort of assumed, right? That I'm just looking for normal water. It's probably going to be from the fridge. You're going to put it into a cup.
Yeah.
But ChatGPT doesn't always assume those steps. It may skip some or completely omit them. And the point of the framework is to make sure that ChatGPT doesn't skip those steps. More importantly, those frameworks also help you kind of set boundaries. So when it comes to, say, essay writing, you want to make sure that you eliminate some sort of bias, or you put in some sort of checks, right, to ensure that you're not going off the question or you're not putting in information that is basically fake, right, hallucinations. The point of the framework is then to also make sure that you as a human know what you're supposed to give ChatGPT so you don't miss anything out. Kind of like a checklist.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. So this also raises a key point about trust. And so, Professor, I have this question for you. How can we teach students to critically evaluate AI output, especially when it's confidently really wrong or biased? We've all seen this. What's the best way to build this kind of awareness?
I think one of the first things that I've been thinking about is this, we keep saying that AI hallucinates, right? But I say that you talk to 3 different people, you're going to get 3 different opinions.
Yes.
Everybody is hallucinating, so there's nothing different, right? So first of all, you need to understand this is just an enhanced search engine, if you like, and whatever it gives you as output, you need to then take that output, put in your own analysis and thinking, and then get out. And also, when you look at it, if you try to get it from one source, that may not be enough. You need to look at multiple sources and correlate the data between these different sources and then build in your own head and also from your own experience as well. What is it that you want to get out of this information? I think so. You need to treat this as suggestions and not take them as truth.
Yes.
I think that is the first thing that we need to, even if you read a newspaper, you look at articles, there are different authors, and you read one page, you will have an opinion, next page is a different opinion. So you need to be able to constantly take in this information and then be able to digest, analyze it, and then make your own decisions. And I think this is the problem. We sit in front of a computer and we think, okay, whatever it gives you is absolutely right. And that's the problem.
Yeah, so I think this helps that I went to journalism school. We've learned how to cross-check sources, and this comes in very handy, But zooming out a bit, Professor Venky, from a systems or a policy kind of perspective, do you think Singapore's higher education sector is adapting fast enough to this shift? Do we need clearer guidelines or even like a national framework almost for responsible AI use and learning?
I think one of the first is we need to see what we have students starting from primary school, secondary school, right, JCs, and then polytechnics, universities. I think different stages in your life, you got to adopt different ways of tackling this problem to start with. Okay, so what Singapore IHLs are doing, they have already taken quite a lot of steps in this regard. So they have developed institutional frameworks and policies. At SMU, we have our policy, what we call as AID, Adapt, Incorporate, and Detect. So in Adapt, we will support instructors in adapting their assessments so that they test for knowledge and skills that are beyond the capabilities of these AI tools. And then in Incorporate, we encourage instructors to use the AI tools in assessments where appropriate and to provide explicit usage guidelines to students because they are useful. These tools are useful, like, as Danish was saying, that in being able to search for information, it gives you multiple sources, then you go and verify that. And then the third is Detect. And we try not to get our faculty moving into the detection phase because we want them to address this, adapt and incorporate. So you will have less reasons to worry about whether the students has plagiarized. So one of the things which I kind of strongly believe is there is nothing nowadays called as truly individual homework.
Okay.
So it's increasingly obsolete. Students are either collaborating with peers or they're going to collaborate with
a computer.
Yes. So there's no point in saying you go home and do it on your own. So we really have to think. So the approaches that universities in Singapore and other places are taking, one is, first approach is to convert take-home assignments into in-class assignments. If I want you to test on whether you can write an essay, I can even give you a topic, you prepare for it, you come to class and you have to write the essay. Okay? And I may change the question with regard to the topic and what I'm asking you to write for the essay. So you can do the research. The second is to redesign assignments, as I said, to keep it beyond the capabilities of AI.
Yep.
So here we ask students to include personal experiences and examples and cases that are discussed in the class. So which probably the ChatGPT will not have access to, right?
Okay.
And also including reflective responses that build personal insight. So these are lots of different things. And in some cases, we also get them. So if you write an essay, you come to class, and then you will have to have an oral presentation. And sometimes you also have to have an interview with the prof.
Okay.
So there are a number of ways that we can tackle.
Yeah.
And the third approach, which I think we should be doing definitely, is to integrate generative AI tools into assessment. So in our writing course, we ask the students to first write, get the first output with the help of ChatGPT or any other tool, and then they got to critique what the tool has produced.
Okay.
And then they should be able to improve.
Okay, well, I have so many more questions, but we are unfortunately out of time. But we've been unpacking how Gen AI is transforming the classroom, not just how students learn, but how teachers teach as well. Thank you so much to both our guests today for joining us. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. That was Professor Venky Shankararaman from SMU and Danish Lukawski, founder of DANAMIC and AI educator. Keep it here on Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.